Four college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Stepchak-Bankard, and I'm here with a double G. He couldn't be here because he's getting a bearded dragon and went to a reptile expo in New Jersey. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
I'd like to thank God and the trans community. I'm doing great, Jen. How are you?
Doing all right. Excited to talk about an awards season milestone for sure. And he brought his ginormous cast iron pot over from Poland, and he was making soup. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
There are so many A-listers here. And by A-listers, I mean people who are on a list that has been heavily redacted. I'm great, Jen. There are so many good Nikki Glaser jokes to share that it's like an abundance of riches. My backup was to do the Nespresso joke, which also just killed me. So pasta. Back to you, Jen.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I tried to get out of the way. I was like, if I pick things that are from acceptance speeches, then that will leave Nikki Glaser's material open to both of you. Dear listeners, those were all references to the 83rd Golden Globes, which aired last night on CBS or Paramount Plus, hosted by, as we've said, comedian Nikki Glaser. We are here today to react to the telecast, break down the winners, talk about what all this means for the Oscar race. And this will be a spoiler-free episode because we're just talking about the winners and the odds of nominees at the Oscars. If we do, for whatever reason, because I don't want to count anything out with these two, we do need to discuss a spoiler for a particular film, we will issue an ad hoc warning in the moment so you can skip ahead. PT, if listeners think we need UFC bodyguards after listening to this episode, what can they do?
If they're excited that we put on over 60 ounces, then they can follow the Long Take Review wherever they get their podcasts. We host the feed on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and many more. Wherever you're listening right now, you can find us there. You can also find us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. The account is at The Long Take Review. Or you can find us on Letterboxd. The account is at LTR Pod. You can also search for the hashtag LTR Pod to see what each of us individually has been watching. Jen?
All right. Thanks, PT. So we wanted in Golden Globes reaction tradition, or kind of award ceremony reaction tradition, I want to start with the telecast. So what did you think of this as a show that we watched on TV?
I thought that the things that were good last year were still good this year, and then they put a bunch of bad things in to somehow make it worse. But I will start off with good and say I was glad Nikki Glaser was back. I thought she did a really good job as the host, and the monologue was great. And we can discuss whether the bits should have been there only for time reasons, but I don't think any of the bits were, a flop or were bad or terrible involving Nikki Glaser. Greg, what do you think?
That's a bad show, Harry. No, here's what I think I'm largely in agreement with you, PT. I would list a lot of things about the show that I really didn't like, but none of them are the fault of Nikki Glaser. I thought Nikki Glaser did an awesome job coming back. I think she was right on her brand of let me not ignore some of the big targets in the room and yet made jokes that, didn't cross any kind of line or weren't insulting really. And, I think she made it look effortless, which I think is a flaw, and not a flaw, but she made it look effortless, which means it's easy to like overlook how hard that is to do and what a good job she did. So I was really glad she's back. She wanted to sign up to be kind of yearly. I think that's good. I actually really liked her very last line of the night, which is that we aimed for the line between smart and stupid, which is Conan's philosophy. I think she's a huge Conan fan, so I think they share that kind of ethos, and I think they hit it exactly right.
I will also add that's a quote from a Rob Reiner movie. That's from This Is Spinal Tap. So I think that was also a Rob Reiner reference at the end of the night.
Right. She was wearing a This Is Spinal Tap hat.
Yes.
Right. So I definitely saw people complaining because they thought there was no Rob Reiner tribute. And I was like, you weren't paying attention. Yeah, so I'm not going to disagree with anything you're saying. I have heard a couple people say they felt like there was a slight dip, like it wasn't as good as last year. I think Ryan McQuaid was sort of saying that from he was on Pop Culture Confidential, but I think he was sort of like, well, but that could just be because it's not new. Like because we already like it. What the freshness of her being a new host and being electric and exciting just maybe made it less. That doesn't mean the quality is any less of what she did. It's just not as new and fresh. I do think that if people did complain about her, it was they didn't like the Marty Supreme K-pop Demon Hunter mashup song. Mostly because Nikki Glaser has many talents singing, not one of them. And Golden, a notoriously difficult song. Like even the actresses who are the singers in the movie, when they have performed that song live, have done it like an octave lower or like in a key lower because it is so difficult to do. So
there was a similar, like it was Conclave at like she was a pope, and it was a mix with something else. With what?
Popular, because it was Wicked and
right,
Pope.
Popular, of course. That like where it's like she starts the song and then it's like, this is a bad idea and we're not going to keep doing this. So that did feel a little bit redundant. To me, that felt just more like there was too many like other things that were going on, and they had already made some like time-based decisions where it was like, okay, if we're going to be cutting things for time, why are we cutting like, say, an award presentation instead of this bit? So I don't think that's like Nikki Glaser's fault. I actually thought that bit wasn't in a vacuum. Like, it's like, okay, Fran Drescher comes out and she makes fun of her voice. That's funny. But like, it just didn't need to happen in terms of the timing of things. But I also generally am like, the monologue ends and we don't need any more like sketches from the host. We could just have like presenters who might have some very light, funny things to do. And then let's just hand out awards and go from there. But that's maybe I'm a little too hardline on that for most audiences, maybe.
I'd agree that was probably the weakest bit for me. I mean, she had some really weird kind of presenter introductions that just felt like overwrought in a writer's room, but they're so quick it doesn't really matter, whereas that was kind of a longer moment. And I also have the context of, I think not her most recent special, but the special before that, she really produced like a pop song. Like she has that dream. So I found it very endearing that she like brought that energy to this. But generally inoffensive and, kept the evening moving. And I thought I particularly liked one of my other choices for the opening. I like that she kind of bit the hand of Paramount a couple times, in particular calling out CBS News and the kind of destructive force, that felt like, we just had this big controversy of all these comedians who went to Saudi Arabia and took big checks and blah, 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 blah. And like, this felt like, oh, yes, I'm taking my big check, but, I'm still going to throw it back in their face a little. And I think a little of that is always fun to watch.
And that definitely earned a lot of people's respect, having heard people reacting to that. They lots of people calling that out.
And Ellison was in the room, right?
Yes.
I believe. So, boo. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I had started listening to The Town on my way home from work today. I didn't get very far, but his big thing, not surprisingly, was like all the people involved in all these deals, like the Warner Brothers sale, are all in the room. Friends, I think the way he said was like friends on a Sunday night or legal enemies Monday morning or something like that. So, did either of you have a favorite bit? I like the Leo joke. That was my favorite. The pasta, like Greg.
Yeah, I think the Leo joke was good. I mean, my favorite was that opening, like sort of salvo about the Epstein list at the NCBS, and that I thought that worked really well, and that was good to both sort of be like, yep, I talked about that, we can move on, but also was funny. If we're potentially expanding beyond Nikki herself, I thought Wanda Sykes, I don't really necessarily love the stand-up special category. Okay, like, the Globes are the Globes and there's something different. So that's cool, I guess. But Wanda Sykes coming out and roasting all of the nominees was great, especially because she started with Bill Maher, who didn't know that's what was going to happen and looked like legitimately offended and hurt by it. And then I would assume maybe like chilled out slightly when she went on to other people, but it's also Bill Maher, so he's probably going to be like fuming about that for the next 8 months, and that's also kind of fun to think about.
Stay mad, bro. My favorite was the introduction to the podcast section, both because it was an AMC parody, but also I thought it really landed every bit of that. The overlong Bomba Socks ad killed me. The clip of Amy Poehler and Gwyneth Paltrow talking about what time they do dinner was really, really funny. And the Smartless guys talking about their cookies. Like I listen to this stuff all the time, and it felt like the right level of kind of mocking. And I think I'm the only one on the pod who is a long time WTF listener, now retired because that show ended. So giving Marin a little moment. I guess he was eligible for this award and didn't get nominated, but it felt, he is not the first podcast that is, very clearly established elsewhere, but he's one of the voices that really made podcasting huge. So it felt great. And the last line where he got to yell, "Lock the gates," just hit right for me. I really enjoyed that one. So, but I'm going to take the transition and say, I agree with PT about stand-up special. And I also agree about podcasts. Like, this is where the Globes are starting to really annoy me, because like, you have enough with TV and film. Stop reaching desperately. I feel like we're one step away from like influencer of the year, and something terrible will happen on stage. So I am very much in the camp that, and actually I think Nikki Glaser's jokes really showed, like, if you love movies and TV, let's just celebrate movies and TV. Let's prove we actually saw them. Not a single joke about how long the nominees were this year, which happened, all the time a few years ago. And so I was very glad that this seemed to be a pro movie and TV award show. Get the other crap out of here. Like, just celebrate these things. Don't kind of sweatily grab for greater relevance, because it's not going to work, right? Like, podcast fans weren't tuning in to get to that award, I don't think.
And that's coming from the man who didn't live in the city that had Ben Shapiro podcast for your consideration billboards. So if even Greg could see it. I will just note, I believe there was one Wicked for Good was too long joke from Nikki Glaser, but
yes,
I thought it was pretty funny and she did a good job with it. And Ariana Grande was laughing.
Wicked for Money got me.
Wicked for Money
bad
was very
too.
strong. I will also note it was Griffin from Blank Check who did the Bombas ad. I think you guys both know that because you're nodding at me like, yeah, I know. But for the audience, that was a good little movie podcast slide in. And Bill Simmons was thanked from the Golden Globe stage. What a time to be alive. Very weird.
So I do, because we were messaging each other during the broadcast, I do know that there's one aspect of the show that we did not appreciate. Who wants to let it rip?
Jen, that's so nice. I listed like 7 things I didn't like about the show.
Well, there's one thing that we all complained about, I feel like, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And that was, which I have seen other, this is getting, I think, widespread. It's not Joe Coy level hate, but it's up there. And it's the idea of sort of having these like play-by-play announcers, which for anyone who's listening and didn't watch the show, bless you for still wanting our content. But it was basically when, I feel like Peter Coyote did it for a really long time at the Academy Awards. Nick Offerman did it. I forget if that was at the Globes last year or the Oscars, but there's usually an announcer who will be like, coming up next, best actor in a drama. And then when someone wins, it will be like, this person has been nominated 5 times before. And they give little like factoids. Instead of that, they had these 2 entertainment journalists, a guy from Variety and a guy from Entertainment Tonight, Kevin Frazier. Good. All due respect to him. He looks like he has aged 20 days in the last 20 years. So that's the best thing I have to say about either of them, because I was like, is that Kevin Frazier's son? Like, what's happening? But they were trying to do this like red carpet kind of like, not snarky, but very like pop culture infused, like trying to get people context about like what might trend on social media around what was happening, and kind of make like little jokes or weird. Like, it was just bad. It was all bad. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't funny. It didn't sound good. sneaking in another complaint I had. There was a lot of sound issues at this award show. And it was gross. It was just like, I don't need this. I don't know what's happening. This isn't the Macy's parade. I don't know why these two guys are just talking over all of this. Let's just let stuff play out. So that was a huge miss for me. Greg, what did you think?
No, absolutely terrible. And like things that were not accurate, right? Like, oh, I think they're going to be in this next. And it's like, oh, that rumor was debunked, dude. And I actually don't know which voice was which, but sometimes they're like, well, he told me at the premiere, wink, wink, nod, nod. Aren't I cool? And it's like, dude, you're like a red carpet reporter. Like, that's fine, but it doesn't like give you special access. They got oddly obsessed with like when the next Adolescence will come, like the next season. Everybody I know who watched that loved that, thought it was great. I have heard not one person be like, can't wait for season 2, right? It was kind of like its own kind of self-contained experience. They can do another one, right? It can be like an anthology, or they could continue that story, but like, well, then they gave away the end of Adolescence too,
yeah.
Right? So it was bizarre and terrible.
Who died in the last Mamma Mia movie? And it was just like, okay, like what? I guess if you're those guys, you assume everybody has seen all of this stuff. I did see an Instagram reel, always a great source of information. But I saw an Instagram reel of the other, not Kevin Frazier, the other guy, Mike or Mark something. And the person who put together was just like, yeah, this guy's whole thing is asking creepy questions of women on red carpet.
Oh.
And it was just a sequence of those, like the first one being him talking to Chase Infinity and saying, how did it feel to call Leonardo DiCaprio daddy? As like his opening salvo, and her being like, what? And then like him asking a co-star of one of the Heated Rivalry guys who was at some thing for something else he was in, being like, is it difficult to look at him and not think about Heated Rivalry and all the scenes? And she was like, no, because he's a really good actor. And it was just like him kind of being shut down by the performers. But it was just sort of like, oh, is this guy like, does he have a fan base? I know the people who own Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and I think have a big stake in E, are the owners of the Globes now, Penske Media. But it just seemed like, I was like, I already hate this guy. And now I learned more about him. I'm like, well, I legitimately don't like him. I want him out. I want him out of my life.
I had the privilege of being, having to compete, my TV having to compete with my children talking over me or to me. And so it took me a really long time to know what you were complaining about over a text message. I'm like, they gotta calm down. What are they complaining about? And then once the kids went to bed and I watched the end, I was like, oh, because then I could finally hear, like, I didn't realize how much I was relying on lip reading to watch the show. And just to see what was happening on stage and not listening to the secondary commentary. But then once I could hear it, I was like, oh, now I understand what they're talking about. This is very annoying and inane.
Can I offer the world's stupidest suggestion? How about you just have those voices tell you where you can watch the thing? Like,
yeah.
How helpful would that be if it was like, hey, this is now streaming on Netflix, and all the companies would love it, right? Or, and obviously if it's a repeat winner, that would run out. But like, when somebody is coming up for a sentimental value, say like, yeah, Neon released it, you can look at it on these platforms, or just the basic level, here's this guy's career, here's how many times this woman's been nominated. All that stuff is way better than whatever they were doing.
Yeah. And again, there's been that I believe I had a proof, it was the Oscars where Nick Offerman was, he folded in some jokes and some bits, but there was also information, and it wasn't like, I don't know, waste of time. It did also merge. I didn't mind this necessarily, but there was also a very like, we're in like the third hour of a wedding DJ music choices for like Stellan Skarsgård was going up to Yeah by Usher, and he sentimental value was put further back in the room. He's an older man who has had a stroke in the last few years. So it took him, and people were standing up and giving him an ovation. So it took him a while. And it's like, we heard this entire song waiting for him to get to the stage. And these two guys talked over it the entire time about other movies that are not the movie he just won for. Aww. Like, this is wild. And not anything else he's done in the last like 3 or 4 years, of which there's been a bunch that people really liked. Justice for Andor, which didn't win anything again in TV. But anyway, yeah, all that was a mess. I also don't like there's no clips of anything except the podcast. Shots of the directors
Yeah.
And I think maybe the writers, like there were shots from the movies for them on their side, but none of the performers. We just got geolocation of where they were in the room, which I did not care about. I didn't like that, and I didn't like the gambling things, which
Oh, yeah, that
which is
seemed
I think
tacky.
worse, and maybe worse than all these other things. Was they put the poly market odds up, and it was just like who's likely to win, which was it's bad that online gambling is just pervasive and such a strong marketing force that like we're just letting it into every part of society. And also it was like, oh, there's an award coming up. Do you want to know who's going to win? It's this thing. It's going to be Sinners for the box office award. It's got to be Timothy Chalamet for actor in a comedy because they're at 90% and the markets know. Come back after the break. It was just like, what are we doing? What do you think is happening at these shows? Golden Globes.
Yeah. Well, thankfully we did get a lot of winners that I think we're mostly happy with. So let's transition to talking about that. Let's bring back the positive energy. What about the show? So, who do you feel like were the biggest winners tonight in terms of like gaining momentum, or maybe no one expected them to win, whatever the case may be? Who do you think came out on top after the Golden Globes?
It's a hard call. It's such a weird year that the dominant movie just continues to kind of cruise along. But to pick just one, as was mentioned moments ago, I thought this was a big boost for Stellan Skarsgård, who particularly after the actor awards or the actors did not nominate anybody from that movie. That sentimental value I thought was on a big downswing, and this, I don't know if this is enough to course correct, but it felt like, this might be the only time we see him stand up. He's a great actor. He is, as he pointed out, he's the father of a lot of great actors as well. And just, I thought it was a good speech. He shouted out that cinema needs to be seen in the cinema, and I was really glad to get to see him make at least one this award season. So that is where I would start with one I was really glad to see. PT, do you have one that stood out to you?
I will say that was going to be my immediate answer as well. I will say what to me was the other big surprise of the night, which does sort of speak to Craig's first point of the favorite is just sort of trucking along. But that's one battle after another. And I did really like that movie. I liked that it got an acting award and it was Teyana Taylor. It's interesting that both, and she gave a great speech, and it was like, these are the first two awards of the night. And it was just like, what's going to even happen? Like, we had no idea what's going on. So I like that. I'm glad that she got it. It is funny that it's like, we've had all these critics prizes. We've had these groups. We've had the nominations, which have given us some shakeups, but we're kind of like, we got the winners that we assumed would have been the winners in like November. Like even before some of these movies came out, where it was like, yeah, Teyana Taylor, and like sentimental value, like wins that the way it wins is Stellan Skarsgård. And okay, Timmy versus Leo, sure. In that side, maybe Wagner Moura was a wrinkle from November, but it just that like those two, I think of them as the big surprises because they're the only two that I missed. No big deal. Humble brag, about getting the rest of the awards right, but. It was like, oh, it's a reset. It's resetting back to the expectations that maybe we had a while ago. I have really liked the other, winners, Amy Madigan for Weapons, Benicio del Toro for One Battle, being the kind of like expected engines for those two categories. But now we're back to sort of the original reset of like who we thought could win in the past. And so that was fun. And I liked that one. And then again, yeah, besides that, there's really no other surprises because I knew exactly what was going to happen because I'm that good at predicting. Jen, how about you?
Well, to be fair, we got the same score.
I know that's true. But there was one that you like, we didn't miss the same ones.
We didn't miss the same ones. We both
because you got Stellan, right?
I had also put Amy Madigan and was wrong because it was Teyana Taylor. I got Stellan Skarsgård right, but then I had also, to match that win, I had put Sentimental Value as the winner of Best Drama, and ended up being Hamnet instead. So I think, to go back to Greg's question of like, did Sentimental Value like make a comeback here or kind of reassert itself? And I think it did just enough by having Stellan win to like hang in there, right? I'm like not taking it out of my best picture predictions at the Oscars because he won, but I think it's not quite enough for it to be like back to where it was before. Because before it was like people were listing it easily in like the top 5 contenders at the Oscars, right? And now I don't think that would be the case. But it seems like it made when I saw Stellan win, I was like, this makes a lot of sense that this is the one place that sentimental value gets a little shine. So that would be my expectation going into the Oscars, but there's still a lot of game time left. I don't know.
It does make me wonder if there's like, does he have a chance in supporting actor in the other award ceremonies coming up where he is nominated, which of course he is not at the actors / SAG awards. But like he's still expected to get an Oscar nomination. Could that be a place where this movie is rewarded? Or is it the sort of just like, oh yeah, okay, sentimental value. That's right. Does this maybe trigger a little bit of a resurgence in international feature where it could start to climb back up above, it's The Secret Agent, clearly the favorite now, and some of the other movies that I'm sure will just.
Right. Secret Agent was going to be my answer for this question because Wagner Moura won Best Actor in a Drama and Secret Agent won International Feature or English language, non-English language feature is what they call it here. And I think that it not only kind of like said, Brazil is here, like very much like what happened last year when Fernando Torres won, but I think it also leapfrogged ahead of a bunch of other international features, which we'll talk about later in the loser category. That, you know what I mean? Like now it is the front runner in international feature at the Oscars. And I don't think that was the case before the Golden Globes. So yeah, go Brazil.
Brazil is powerful. I was actually today, the Letterboxd year review came out and I was just looking back at my stats, and the highest rated thing I watched on Letterboxd, meaning not my rating, but the highest average, was Lady Gaga in Rio. What is happening here?
Wow.
That this is the film that is the highest rated from my Letterboxd watching last year. But I think you're absolutely right that it's a winner. I think it's a deserved winner. To me, the narrative about Secret Agent is just that it appeared much later than the other international features, at least for normies, as much as that applies to the international features access category. So I think it's like it's catching on, it's catching fire. It's a very deserving film. It really, PT, do you remember the runtime on that? You saw it more recent. It's close to 3 hours, right?
2 hours and 40 minutes, yeah. 2:38.
Yeah, but it cooks. It's the rare time when I really agree with one of those, like, I was there for 10 minutes and suddenly it was 3 hours later. So I think it's a great film. It's a great nomination. I think I have not watched Narcos, I believe is where people know Wagner Moura from.
Yes.
But very compelling. Certainly somebody I would seek out again because it's a great performance.
Greg, you should think about watching the movie Civil War. I believe he's in that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's the other photographer. He's the one who. Well, I can't say what he does because then I would be the Golden Globe announcers just giving random spoilers for no good reason.
In the continuing the narrative, I guess I should say, about like maybe let's reset some of the expectations that we love critics groups, and we love when they kind of start to maybe pile up some of their suggestions, and we get to be like, oh my God, maybe we're moving in over here. We're going in this direction. But resetting back to earlier expectations, good night for Hamnet. It wasn't an amazing night. But I mean, it won 2 big awards, best drama and best actress in drama, which it was certainly expected months ago that it was like, yeah, of course, like the two, Hamnet is going to be the big challenger when we were thinking Sinners was fading because it was too long ago. And these international movies, that's nice, but like it's really going to be Hamnet versus One Battle. And that's what played out. We got the one and the one on each side, and it's again, if you told someone back a few months ago, yeah, it wins these 2 awards, you'd be like, I guess Handmaid only kind of held serve maybe, but because it's sort of drifted away a little bit in the conversation, and Rose Byrne's been picking up so many Best Actress awards in times when Jessie Buckley is in there too, or was eligible there, that getting Jessie Buckley a win, getting her on TV again after the Critics' Choice and also giving it a Best Picture award was great, was good for that. And I think that's going to be, now again, it's back up into like, yep, this is the challenger to the juggernaut that Greg was talking about.
I'm going to agree, but say I think Jessie Buckley did not do well on her speech. With all my love and
I liked it.
Buckley, I did not like that speech. I thought Chloe Zhao's speech and Uncle Stevie getting to introduce her, I thought that moment on stage and in the spotlight did really well for the race, as PT is saying. She needed a little help. But when I think about her performance that's so dark and challenging and like really emotional, all I can think is, isn't she lovely? Which is the awful music cue that came on, to PT's point, late wedding reception music cue.
That's what they play in the movie during the Globe scene, right? I mean, that was like in the background. That's the problem with the score. Greg, I think the issue with Jessie Buckley is she did have a lot of help. And by that, I mean, she might have been intoxicated when she got up on stage, because she looked like she was having a good time the whole night.
Jen, correct these Irish stereotypes that are flying around here.
Yeah. So what you're failing to understand is that Jessie Buckley has gone to the Olivia Colman School of Acceptance Speeches, and that has gone historically very well for her. She can't have a canned speech. If she had just done a slightly different version of the very excellent speech she did at Critics' Choice, I think she wouldn't come across as authentic. And I love the bit about the soup. Like everything she has said in the acceptance speeches so far has been consistent with like the earthy sort of mood of Hamnet. I mean, like she's talking about cave, she's talking about soup, like meat and potatoes, and like like healing people.
All right, with the potatoes. Like, come on, you
unbelievable,
come on,
Jen. Come on.
She said it, not me. Anyway, I think I'm enjoying it. She's charming because I think what this proves is that the first speech, even if it was better, was still probably kind of just off the cuff, and she's just like looks up at the sky and says, what am I going to talk about? And I really like that. Spontaneity is good.
Well, Jen, do you take her speech or Rose Byrne's speech? Because I think you're right that they were in a similar kind of bubbly, I'm overwhelmed, I wasn't expecting this lane, even though both of them had to be pretty sure they were going on stage.
And the Polymarket odds were up on the screen, apparently, in the room. I don't know if that was discussed. I'm sorry. I'm back to ranting about this.
Yeah.
Like, beyond the fact they showed it on the TV, they had a board in the room that had the odds for every category that updated live. So you'd be sitting there looking up to be like, oh, like someone was like, The Rock could just see the 0% next to his name the whole night until they said his award. It's like, oh, okay. So anyway, yeah, presumably they should have known because the odds were up.
I liked the Rose Byrne speech also. And, if you reference reptiles at the end of your speech, I'm not going to be mad at you. I mean,
also that she left it at Bobby, and you have to know it's Bobby Cannavale, right? Like, I just love that too,
which makes it so much funnier.
Yeah.
Just picturing that. I was listening to Mike and Oscar earlier, and they misremembered. She said bearded dragon in the actual speech, which is a small, like reasonable pet size lizard. But Mike and Oscar were convinced that she said Komodo dragon.
Oh my god!
Which is like a giant
her own Bond movie.
Yeah, which is like a giant poisonous lizard. They were like, well, everything in Australia is trying to kill you. It was very funny, but it seemed like they genuinely didn't remember what lizard she said, and they were just running with a Komodo dragon, which I thought was great.
Well, in the interest of what if there's like a mistake, I rewatched her speech and Jessie Buckley's because I was confident there was going to be a question about this coming up during the show. She does say Cannavale, but like she kind of turns away from the microphone and kind of swallows it. She goes, Bobby, and it's just like Bobby Cannavale. And like I didn't hear it at the time. I just thought it was similar to what Craig thought. So I think that like she meant to say it, but I'm coming back to the production problems. Those microphones needed some sort of wider, whatever, like span, because multiple times there were two people presenting and you could hear one and the other person sounded like they were like 5 rooms away. So it's just ruining.
This is not
setting
the
up
right
that.
episode to be complaining about sound issues.
I don't know what
Considering
you're
we
talking
spent
about.
25 minutes before we started recording trying to fix my mic and failed.
Jen, I would love to think the Golden Globes have a bigger budget than the Long Take Review.
That's true.
They could have gotten it right.
Any other speeches that you really liked?
I mean, again, a little biased because I like the movie and I like him. I think both of Paul Thomas Anderson's speeches were great. Maybe a little too low key, but I really liked what he focused on in each one. There was the sort of the magpie idea and giving credit to all these other people that he borrowed stuff from over the decades he worked on this screenplay. And then for this director one, talking about the exec who supported him and his assistant director who passed away last year. Although I feel like it was like when his I don't know if it's his wife, but the producing partner who spoke when One Battle won Best Comedy, I feel like she went out of her way to be like, and he died, because like I think Paul Thomas Anderson might have assumed like everyone knows him and like what happened and why I'm getting a little choked up talking about him. I feel like she added that in for like the campaigning narrative of just like, and it's sad this guy died. Like he worked with a bunch of famous directors, including Paul, a lot. So, but I think like I liked his, and he like was holding the trophy like a baby and called it a double G, which, very cute. So yeah, I don't know. I liked those.
I like Chalamet. I like this turn towards humble Chalamet, and like my dad taught me humility, and I think it's working really well. It's hard not to see it as just a little manufactured after the big Marty Supreme energy at last year's SAGs. They were the SAGs last year, by the way. They're the actors this year. I like it. It feels a little calculated in a way that he wouldn't like, but I think he's doing the right moves, and I liked it a lot.
I think my other two that I would give a shout out, Gregory mentioned Chloe Zhao's speech. I think her shout out to Ryan Coogler, so classic.
Yeah.
Loved it. And for those who don't know, when she made the comment about I taught you how to make fire, that's not a metaphor, I don't think, because they both came up in the same like Sundance program.
Yeah.
And so they actually sort of like lived in a dormitory or something like that. You know what I mean? Like she means actual fire.
Yes, a dormitory with insufficient heating, so they made fire in the fireplace so they could stay warm. When Coogler got to talk for the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement, the other people from Sinners who talked were kind of like, okay, like that they're fine. But when he talked, it was great. And he talked about like the audience and, similar to Stella, going and seeing it in the movies and how important that was. And like when they're working on it, like how it's work. And then, it was great. Like he did a really good job. And it's just
thinking
like,
the audience, right? Because he was like, people came out to see it, and I don't take that lightly. Yeah, it was a really solid speech. Just too bad it was for Cinematic and Box Office Achievement, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Last shout out, I would say I actually really liked Bogdamora's speech because the comment he made about values, and like, I'm not going to get it right now, but it was really good. It wasn't overly long or like, not trying to do too much, but had a nice message in it. And
it was, if trauma can be generational, so can values. So
that's right.
Like for the people who stick to their values, like you're, right. You're sending it forward to the future generations, which was great.
Just notable that there were very few political gestures kind of across any. I saw a little on the red carpet. I think Mark Ruffalo was like, this is all BS. We should be talking about Renee Good. And
Natasha Lyonne did the same thing.
Gene Smart as well.
And, I think it's really hard when the world is on fire in every possible way, and you have to pretend that the movies and TV shows are the most important thing in the world for one night. So it's just notable that there's kind of a retreat from a lot of that, which we've seen in the past. But then again, Sean Penn didn't get to go on stage.
True. I will say, and I'm very sorry because now I'm just going back to another broadcast problem, because I think this would have been a good speech. It would have gotten to being a good speech. But the director of Secret Agent, whose name I don't quite remember and definitely cannot pronounce, is
Mendoza Philo. I think.
Thank you, Philo. Nice. I definitely was saying Philo in my head for a long time, and I was like, that's not right. But he kind of started a little slow and was like building up to sort of like starting to make a point, and then he was the only one they like really played off, where like they started the music, they cranked it up, and it was all in service of, as soon as he leaves, they do the dumb UFC like, here come bodyguards for the next presenters, and it was just sort of like, oh yeah, what we need is some big like fascist tough guys to come out and like walk across the stage in strobe lights and look tough. It's like, maybe not right now, maybe we don't need that right now, especially as you're leading into the two guys from the LGBTQ show. It's like, maybe just let him finish his speech and not do this, even if Paramount Plus
and it was
is
very clear he was like ramping up to say something important. You know what I mean? Like that. Like if you were paying attention to what he was saying, it's clear that he was like 2 seconds away from being like from having some big message and making some having something to say. And yeah, it's unfortunate. But I think the mentality probably was like, oh, nobody knows who this is anyway, so like let's wrap it up. We gotta get.
Why would we want to celebrate these movies? We've got stuff to promote.
The UFC thing, okay. And if you listen to our Smashing Machine review, I have a lot of love for UFC and mixed martial arts. It's like the one sport I could talk about competently, apparently, and. Even then I was like, what is this? Like, it seemed apropos of nothing and made no sense. No one said anything. They came out on stage, walked around, and then left. And it was like, what was that? I don't.
On a night where we had two announcers that were like talking through everything, it was like, this was the time to just openly make this an ad and just like let it be known about like, and go to Paramount Plus if you want to see all your UFC garbage. Sorry, Jen. All due respect.
Well, and make the joke. Like, you all got this subscription for tonight, but stick around. We've got UFC. Like, I think sportscasters, as I understand sports as a thing I've heard of, they're very good at that, like, barrel rolling of, and tonight after the game, we've got a new episode of Tim Allen in Dad Be Working, or whatever his show is right now, right? And, like, you could do that, or you could advertise the movies, and it wouldn't be a big deal. People would put up with that because we're used to. I'd rather that than the poly market BS, right? Like if you were like, yeah, here's what's coming to Paramount Plus, right? Paramount Plus has the movies is their slogan. Like, tell us that Mission Impossible Final Reckoning is here or whatever. Like, totally fine, but we don't do that. We pretend that the movie crowd wants to do this. And then I'm just gonna sneak in my other point, my big angry thing. I'm not gonna wicked for good on you all, but I will say, who cares if this is 3.5 hours long? If people are tired, they'll shut it off. Like, I see no reason why Ludwig couldn't get his award and get to give his speech during the telecast for best score. Best score belongs on this telecast way more than podcast or stand-up comedian, right? Or, a lot of the TV categories, which we all knew the answers to anyway, even though we don't watch TV. I have so tired of that being a part of this. I mean, again, I don't really watch sports myself, but when it's Super Bowl Sunday and they're like, we're going to start coverage at 10 a.m. and it'll be like pre-show to the pre-show to the pre-show, people will tune in or they won't. Like, just make it a long event anytime you have one of these. Yeah.
It must be dire if we're asking for ads. Like, that's.
I also do want to note. I also want to know we are now wrapping up the positive part of our outline.
Yeah, sorry.
With all that, I do just want to note, since Greg brought it up, and I don't think it quite fits when we inevitably pivot to talking about Sinners not having a very good night. You can go online and you can watch Ludwig's speech. It wasn't like, the thing that was the Critics' Choice where they gave one out on the red carpet.
Yes.
And they were just like, "Hey man, you won."
It was the secret agent.
But it was, he got called up and he gave a very nice speech, and it was very clear that he was like, this might be the only other time we're going to talk about Sinners, because I think it was after Cinematic Box Office Achievement, because he went through, he was like, Ryan Coogler, you did this. Like when we were soccer, you did this. Like when you were doing this, it helped me compose when you were working on the scene. Watching Michael B. Jordan play these two characters, and so it was like going through everyone who might get a nomination from that cast. and really giving them like a moment. And it was like, it's only like 3 or 4 minutes, it's the duration of a commercial break. And it was just like, what are we doing? What are we doing that we can't do that? And there's, I love that podcast bit too. I wouldn't want that instead of that. I wouldn't want the Marty Supreme song. I certainly didn't want some of the categories. And it was just like, and I don't want the UFC stuff. And I don't need the Poly Market stuff. It was just like, just give us the categories, give us the winners. What are we doing?
All right.
Let's go, Nikki.
Let's talk about losers. So we are going to talk about Sinners. Before we do that, was there anyone else who kind of seemed to lose steam as a result of not winning here?
I mean, the big one was it was just an accident. I mean, big. Sinners is the big one, but it was just an accident is the one that like went home completely empty-handed and had gotten a boost, I think, from the Globe nominations because it was nominated, 5 times? And, it did feel like, oh, is it possible? Is the Globes the body that breaks from PTA and gives Jafar Panahi Best Director? It was, I think, still the front runner for international or whatever, non-English language feature. So, it did feel like it was going to win at least one thing, probably not drama or I forget the other categories it was nominated for, but
Screenplay.
Oh yeah, screenplay. Yeah. It was like it could have taken one of the Paul Thomas Anderson wins potentially. It seemed when the nominations came out, and that Secret Agent has been running so strong. Sentimental Value getting a little bit of a boost from Stellan winning. Sarat has got all those Oscar shortlist in the technical categories down there, where it's suddenly just like, it was just an accident, like in 4th place for international feature at the Oscars. Is it like even safe? Like it's probably down 9th or 10th when, again, that was another one when Sentimental Value clicked down out of 5th place. It was just an accident was the one that replaced it. So, that was tough. And one last thing, I did not like Judd Apatow, his performance setting up director. And I didn't like, this is a very kind of like outdated mindset about like, oh, I don't know if I can pronounce this name because there's so many weird names here. Oh, and the winner's name is Paul. And like, again, it's like, I understand the thinking in the mind of a comedian of why that thinks like it's funny, but to actually do that at the show, like, because there was definitely both Jafar Panahi and Chloe Zhao, and I didn't go back and look to see if Guillermo del Toro, but like the two of them kind of like leaned forward a little to be kind of like, wait a minute, like, is this possible? And it's like, dude, like you can't like do that, especially after you just spent like 7 or 8 minutes rambling about things that were not particularly funny. So I thought that sucked. So I think that was a salt in the wound is the only reason I'm bringing that up, is like, it was just an accident, had a rough night. And then there was salt in the wound of like Judd Apatow almost like mocking him for like not being the person who wins. And that was tough.
Agreed. And I think the stock is falling fast on that one, which is too bad because it's got a great story and it's a great movie. It is just absolutely killer. There's a lot of people on stage last night talking about like, when you get just a little exposure for one of these tiny movies, it can mean so much. I'd actually put in the winner category, even though it lost everything, Sorry Baby. You get Julia Roberts presenting one of the best awards and she pauses awkwardly, albeit, to say like, go check out Sorry Baby. That's a huge win for a movie like that. Like I think of all the, Julia Roberts diehards who would probably at least pull up the tile and see where it's playing right now. That's a win. And it's on HBO, right? I think
HBO Max, yeah.
So they can actually see it. And that's a great break for that and a well-deserving movie. Stay tuned to the LTRs. So I think that the opposite being true for it was just an accident. Oh, that was in all these categories and in there. I will continue with the other one that I think got blanked is Frankenstein. Now, Frankenstein is not as much of a loser in the sense that it will still be very competitive in technical categories that were not present tonight. That, the costuming, the makeup, those categories don't exist at the Globes, or at least on the air at the Globes. I don't think they exist at all. But that name got said a lot, and every time PT yelled, "It's Frankenstein." But then other than that, there was nothing. And it's a shame. I do think that's had one of the more interesting narratives across the season. It's been up, it's been down, and it's these ones that are on Netflix. I don't underestimate that they're way more seen than a lot of the other categories, but or a lot of the other films. But I don't think I'd be putting any money on anything for that film. It might get blanked at the Oscars too, which would be a shame.
You mean in
Jen,
terms
you're
of
the Guillermo head.
Wait,
What
you
do you
mean
think?
nominations?
No, I mean actual awards. It'll get. I mean, it's Guillermo. He'll get a lot of costuming, makeup.
I was gonna say the dicier thing as a result of this probably is Guillermo in director at the Oscars. I think this shows weakness. And what's interesting is I was listening to Next Best Picture. It was their Golden Globe, so they recorded right before, they recorded on Sunday, but it was before the ceremony. And they were talking about how for some voters, there's just like the horror is too crowded, and that Frankenstein is the one that's like the last one through the door, basically, because if you have sinners and weapons, and, you know what I mean? Like, and I hadn't really thought about that because to me, Frankenstein is a literary adaptation of, a very historically significant novel. So I don't think of it as like populist, but them talking about it in that context to be like, well, like it's, it can't be, if you have Ryan Coogler in a director lineup, can't also have Guillermo del Toro because that's too much popular, like horror.
Right.
It's too many monsters and vampires. Like we can't have monsters and vampires. Is there
weird movies about sexy monsters or something like that, or monsters having sex? Yeah. Was the Nikki Glaser thing?
Oh yeah, that was. Funny.
I think that's fair. I would be surprised if Frankenstein goes home completely empty-handed at the Oscars just because of the technical awards. But it might end up more in that like Wicked last year, where it was like, oh, it's got all these nominations and maybe it's got an acting chance in there, but really it's like, okay, you're going to get a couple awards and you'll be fine. I should just correct what I said earlier. It was just an accident. Had 4 nominations. It was Frankenstein that had 5, and there was one other movie that had 5, which was Wicked for Good, which I don't think anyone was even really thinking about winning any awards tonight, because the space where it was like, oh, well, we'll just give Wicked like a song got obliterated by Sinners, and then Sinners got obliterated by K-pop Demon Hunters. So that just kind of came and went. We got a couple of jokes in the monologue, and I feel like there was very little thinking about it. Cynthia Erivo wasn't there. Ariana was just sort of doing her thing. And
yeah, I think Ariana Grande specifically is probably had the most to lose from Wicked falling out of the conversation. And she really went from she's definitely going to win this category in the fall to now, oh, maybe she doesn't even get nominated. Yeah. It's crazy. So, and I do still think she deserves to get nominated. and the fact that like we were so sure that she was in, and now it's like, oh, well, maybe Wicked doesn't get anything at all because there's something like Frankenstein to sort of dominate the crafts. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have, and I think it was very clear from the way that the Globes winners shook out that Wicked's not even on people's minds as much now, which is very interesting. So
I was just thinking about last year's Golden Globes where there was a Wicked table and there was a whole bit where Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum talked from stage back to Ariana and Cynthia and John Chu. It's like, and that's like gone. Yep. Like it's, I think everybody was like, well, we'll wait for part 2 and we'll do the Return of the King thing. And we accidentally did the Hobbit thing. Ooh. So, and that's not even commenting on the problematic race categories in this Wicked sequel. But it's, I really think it's a shame for Ariana, as you were just saying. And I think a lot of people feel like, well, she'll be back again, right? She's young. She's clearly hungry for this, wants to add more acting to her resume beyond being she was a Nickelodeon star, not a Disney Channel star.
I want to say
child star. And then obviously spending so much time being a pop star, but like to come back, and she could, I mean, I think she has, she's filming something right now that sounds pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens.
A Nickelodeon, Greg, you were right. I apologize.
Well done.
Victorious.
Nick.
Victorious, and then Sam and Cat.
I don't know what that is.
So let's tackle the big one. So
Yeah, Sinners.
Sinners. This is what upset me the most last night. And so I think there's two ways to view this. There is one battle after another, and then there is a clump of movies following that got 2 awards each. The previously mentioned Hamnet, the previously mentioned Secret Agent, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Sinners picks up 2, but in this case, I think it's significant. Only one made it onto the telecast,
Right.
and that is the traditional ridiculous prize of cinematic and box office achievement. And my take on this category is it was already a joke. And then this year when the nominations came out and it was a Netflix movie, which had no box office, right? Or very little box office, an Avatar movie, which hadn't even come out yet. And who knew what the box office would be. And then, a few others. I will say I did terribly on my predictions, listeners. If you looked at my ballot on our social media, I got, I think, 8 on the night out of the 15 movie categories. I think I was hope dicting that they would give it to F1 as like a let's give one to over there, not because I love F1, because I didn't want it to be Sinners. And I think honestly this is the kiss of death. So the inverse of hey, it's in that clump of second most awards is it got told we like you, but we don't love you. And I think this is really bad news for the Sinners campaign, and I'm pretty pissed about it. Jen, talk me out of my doom and gloom.
Well, I don't know if
Michael,
I can do that.
be okay.
But I want to say I told you so. So if we run back the tape,
Transcript.
Yeah, I definitely said that Sinners to me felt like Barbie in that it's going to get this consolation prize and then nothing else. And that mostly turned out to be true.
What?
Am I forgetting something that it won? It
won score.
It won score.
Well, and Barbie won song. So it was very similar.
Yeah.
And then last year, I think Wicked only won box office achievement. It didn't win anything else.
Yes. There are many problems with the cinematic and box office achievement category. But I think the biggest problem is, this is the third time they've done it now. And every time there's a bunch of movies that would normally never be in the awards conversation, right? And so in that theory, like, that's not bad, right? But then there are always 1 or 2 movies that are the elevated genre movies. And
right.
by putting them on this list, the voter psychology of it is, oh, well, I can give it that, and then I can give something else that's more serious in the other category that's nominated, right? Drama, comedy, musical, whatever. And so basically, like, nudging people towards giving it this, like, booby prize seems really unfair, right? Because if we had if that box office achievement nomination list had not included Sinners, right, one of the other movies would have won, and then Sinners would have actually had a fighting chance in Best Drama, right? I actually do believe that.
I believe that
instead,
too.
Yeah, but instead now we have this, and we have to live with these choices.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that because I remember it was the Oscars first were like, we're going to do Best Popular Movie. And it was like, it was the sort of just like, we don't have Titanic anymore. We don't have the first Avatar. Like, we don't, and before Oppenheimer. So they were like, we just don't have movies winning that are making a lot of money. So we don't have, we're not going to nominate Marvel movies except for Black Panther. We're not going to nominate other comic book movies. We're not going to nominate Star Wars movies. So let's put those into a category that gets its own thing. And it was like, the Flash enters the speed zone or whatever that was the like sort of like teaser of that, of just kind of just like, we want to make sure this thing's going to get an award so people will tune in because they're super fans. And the Oscars were quickly like, that's not a good idea. And that switched over to this Globes thing where they were just sort of like, yeah, but like, we're going to try to have it be both. And it did still feel like they set it up so it could be like, oh, Avatar could win an award, or Zootopia could win an award tonight. That'll be good. Or yeah, maybe it'll be F1 because that made a lot of money. But they do this thing, like you were saying, Jen, where it's like, but they also add in these movies that like did make some money and also have a really good chance, have some sort of a chance, are nominated in these other categories. And yeah, it's creating this psychology. And then the domino from that isn't voters who watched the ceremony being like, oh, so like Sinners got like the secondary Best Picture award. So like actually there's 3 Best Picture winners to think about: Hamnet, One Battle, and Sinners. Like I need to balance all of those. Those are the top 3. Instead, it's Sinners. It was great that you were there. Boom, and like they're out of the picture, and it's actually like an anchor. It's a detriment, which sucks. It would it be better? I think it would be better from the sense of the awards. I don't know if it would have been better in terms of results for me personally if Sinners wasn't in that category or that category didn't exist. And then it was like, it has a real shot in drama and it still loses to Hamnet, or it loses the sentimental value. Then it's just like, oh, Sinners got 1 award. It was off air. Like that sucks. Like that's a real shame. So, I don't know, but, all that is to say, I think we maybe still have more, maybe there's a couple more Globes things to talk about, but expanding out to some of the other awards race and news that's happened recently, Greg, to stand in for Jen, who didn't talk you off the ledge. I will note that Sinners got a lot of BAFTA long list mentions in a way that I think people were surprised, because the thinking was internationally this movie won't have as much support. It will probably have more support in the Globes, which is a more diverse international body than the British critics or the British Academy who'll be voting there. So yeah, it's including Delroy Lindo, Miles Caton, I think is in a couple of categories, and it's in all. Yeah, right? It won me. So it's and Michael, of course. So it's got like a lot of stuff there. That's only the long list. It's not nominations. Who knows if it'll carry forward? But that's the thing to hold on to, is the Globes do this Globes thing, and now it's 3 years. I think we can say it's pretty locked in, even when the director of Wicked wins at what, Critics' Choice, or was that NBR? Critics' Choice. Barbie, but Barbie and Wicked both kind of got locked into that, like, you're going to get 1 or 2 awards, you're going to be happy with that, and count your money, like you're going to be fine. And so Sinners feels like it's in that, but there is some evidence that there's still some momentum from the constituency that reflects the Academy outside of its seeming core constituency, which would be American Academy members. So maybe it can overcome, but it was for sure a setback, and they were the biggest sort of tripped up, I think, of the night, only because they had farther to fall.
The way that I think all of what we're talking about funnels into the Oscars, their version of this, and granted it's a lot less egregious, their version of this often is the screenplay categories are the like, oh, you're a cool movie, but we don't want to give you any of the other big prizes. And it definitely feels like Ryan Coogler winning original screenplay for Sinners does feel like the logical place where it's like, okay, One Battle is going to take all these other things, but you can have this.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit.
To Get Out. That's what happened to there's a whole list of movies where it's like the cool kid prize. We don't want to give you the actual prizes. Not to say the screenplay is not an actual prize, but you know what I mean. Like it's like the Best Pictures also ran prize.
You go all the way back to. I was locked in already. I'd already been watching it, but I feel like I was like really adding my investment in was movie year 97. Titanic was going to win everything, but screenplay goes to LA Confidential and Good Will Hunting, and it was just sort of like, okay, like these are good movies. Like these are small. You're going to win. Both of you are going to win acting awards too, but like you're not going to get Best Picture, guys. Calm down. Like here you go. And that could be Sinners this year. It seems like original screenplay and score are the 2 awards to be like, here are your 2 awards, Sinners. Enjoy. It could still expand cinematography, editing. We still have acting people that are going to hopefully be nominated and might have some sort of a chance. So it's possible. It's possible they break out of that. But yeah, I think you're right. Like which is not the worst thing in the world, in the grand scheme. If you asked us in September, October, November, we might have been like, Sinners, that movie's forgotten. That's Dune Part 2. Like that's going to disappear. But it has come back. It does have a place of prominence. It's been getting a lot of support from critics. So, if the baseline is 2, okay, like it would be nice if it got more. Again, stay tuned for the LTRs coming up in future weeks.
just because I couldn't break in a second ago, I just want to know you're not wrong in the way you're framing this. That everything you both said is accurate. But here's what sucks: when Jen lists those 3 movies that like get the quote unquote booby prize, they're also the ones not about white dudes, right? It's like, oh yes, you're right that these are elevated genre, but you're like, you know what? The black people movie we're not going to welcome into our real awards. Oh, the one that was for women, we're definitely not welcoming that into our awards. And if the point of this award is to broaden the audience, all I can think of is when the Oscars happened and everybody's like, so Barbie, the feminist masterpiece, gets 1 award and it's for the dude. Awesome, right? And, taking cinematic aside, it's like, they found the white dude, Ludwig, to recognize for Sinners. A deserving award, a great award. And obviously that is not being very fair to One Battle After Another, which is a story about modern America and racial divides and all of those dynamics and so on. But it's just, to me, it's like when Jen's like, yeah, the cool kid award. It's like, yeah, the people we don't let into the like leather smoking jacket clubs, right? Like you're not welcome at the country club, but you can get this award. So I just want to call that out because I think it needs to be said point blank, because these awards bodies need to do better. But it's exactly what you guys were saying as well.
And I don't think this discourse will translate to the Academy, but if you go on social media right now, the internet is aflame with people being like, what do you mean One Battle After Another, a movie written by a white guy about black people is winning? Like, you know what I mean? Like, people see it as regardless of what the movies are, they see the optics of it as being really problematic.
And great, we had to give to another movie about Shakespeare, and we had to give that the award for that was up against Sinners. Yeah. Okay, cool.
People coming after Hamlet for sure. Joe Reed's prophecy comes true.
I will say, I've heard from listeners that people are like, you didn't like Hamlet as much as everybody else, and you were very conciliatory about it. If Hamlet becomes a real competitor to any of these movies to actually win, I will become insufferable. I'll become insufferable about that movie. I already have the comparison locked and loaded of the movie I think it would be if it actually won Best Picture this year, and it's not flattering. And our absent co-host Antonio would be particularly mad that I said this, because I know you all love it, and it's a 5-star movie for all of you, and you would be like, no, it's a very worthy winner. But I wouldn't think that, and I would be a big old jerk about it. So I apologize in advance. I would have liked Sinners to win for that reason alone.
Your hawk gloves are coming off.
Well, I just want to, again, my other bugbear of the season is that I think the last 3 years or so, the explosion of the Oscar critic industrial complex has meant this like new prominence to the critics all get to decide. And my example from this season is History of Sound, which the 3 of us who are on that show liked. PT recently watched, maybe not as positive as us, but liked it.
No, but I liked it a lot.
And it's like, we just decided because 5 people in a room in Telluride thought it was fine and not queer enough that's just not a contender this year. And I think that is going to become more and more problematic with this divide. When the kind of normies are checking in and everything they love is like, well, no chance whatsoever. What are you talking about? That's not a real movie. I think that's a problem. And so I don't know how to fix that problem, because if anything, we're contributing actively to the problem more than trying to solve it. And it's like, we consume this stuff, we all watch this stuff, and it's like it's becoming a problem that we don't actually get to decide. Now, Springsteen is probably the example of like, okay, the critics all loved it because they went to a really cool screening where Bruce Springsteen was there, and it fell apart this year because people saw it and were like, no, it's awful, right? And so it's not like it's all one way or the other, but I am seeing that emerging as a problematic trend. And I think the more that the general movie-going public sees a lot of the movie-going public loved Wicked for good. And if all they did is tune in and see it get crapped upon and shuffled literally to the edge of the room, then like I think that's going to continue to harm these award shows.
I agree with what you're saying. I do think that's been in terms of the awards themselves, that's been a problem for a while. That's why we started getting best popular movie as a possibility, and then the cinematic and box office achievement, because they were just sort of like, where's Avengers Endgame? Why am I learning about this Korean movie now? And you know, it's tough because sometimes it's like the smaller movie is good. I do like your example of like, and sometimes people are going to rise up and be like, "Where's History of Sound?" Like the waves of people who went to go see that. But I agree, and I think that part of the issue, and I won't say that we're fixing the problem. I won't say that we're not contributing to the problem. But I do think it's a good reminder for us as people who's talking to mics to each other about this, that it's not just about the game theory of, well, what's going to happen here, where these pieces fall, and what's the narrative that's being formed, and what are these different bodies going to think, but just what do we think about it, and like, did we like it? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you might go see a movie and be like, I guess this movie isn't going to go anywhere in terms of any kind of recognition, but like, it was awesome, I loved it. Or everyone is absolutely like falling head over heels for, you know, Frankenstein or whatever, and be like, oh, whatever, it was fine. I thought Frankenstein was good, but I didn't want to say Hamnet again. So, you know, whatever, that it's like, you know, we can be true to ourselves and try to get the word out on movies like History of Sound. And you know, let that happen. But you're right, there is this, like, because there's so much attention paid to it, there is this kind of a tastemaker component that, again, is not always the case. Like, you know, like Jay Kelly had 2 or 3 wins because it was like, oh, they hate it in Venice, it's bad, and then it got a couple festivals here that people liked. Frankenstein was received poorly at the festivals, and then, you know, has gotten all this momentum to the point where now it's like, it didn't win anything at the Globes. Like, right after the first festival premiere, that would have sounded crazy because everyone was like, that movie's dead in the water. So it's tough because sometimes, especially the smaller the movie, the easier it is to, you know, kill it right away, drown it in at birth, almost, from when it's first seen. But there are still sometimes chances. We can't let critics, and we can't let the people who can afford to go to all these festivals make the decision.
What are those polymarket odds based on, except what people on the internet are reading from the critics, and like, it's gonna just get worse if this is like folded in. So I don't have, I've said my piece, but like, they're leaning into it.
Luckily, Greg, surely there will be government regulation for this crypto-driven industry. I'm sure that's coming right down the pike.
I can't believe I'm about to try to defend the Globes, but I just want to remind everybody that old Globes never would have, the Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You'd Win, would never have happened in the old Globes. And Ava Victor never would have gotten nominated for Sorry Baby. So I think there is a little bit of movement towards smaller films in a way there wasn't necessarily before. And that sort of segues in my next question. Having kind of absorbed a lot of reactions to the Globes, mostly this morning, it really seems like the major complaint now that people start off with is, well, now the Globes is too boring. They've gone too straight. They've gone too legitimate. They've cleaned up too much, and now they're trying to be like an actual award ceremony. That's no fun. And part of me wants to be like, you asked for this. Everybody asked for this. Like, why are we complaining? And so what do you think about that critique? Like, the idea that, like, you know, for so long the Globes was like, and they still call it, when they advertise it on the broadcast, they're like, Hollywood's craziest party, right? Like, all the glitz and all the glamour. And now the winners kind of reflect something that's more like the Critics' Choice or the Oscars, or, you know, something that is more serious. Is that a problem? Are we okay with this? What do you think?
This will be my version of Greg's soapbox. I will borrow his soapbox briefly and hope it's reinforced. To say that, like, you know, the problem is, like, I don't think there should be this many televised award shows. We watch them and we like them, but it's just kind of like, the Golden Globes were cool because it was the Golden Globes and the Oscars. And the Oscars were the official thing, and the Globes were this crazy payola bribe-filled wackiness with, like, strange European randos, like, in some weird room. We found out later sexually harassing a bunch of people along the way, which is a problem. But, you know, like, when we didn't know that, we were just kind of like, yeah, these weird people, they're just doing crazy stuff, like, whatever. And then, like, okay, now we'll get to the Oscars. But, like, because there is this industry that is around the awards and the prediction of the awards and the marketing of the awards and the fear consideration and the campaigning, and, you know, it's all derived from Harvey Weinstein, who's a bad person. So it's just like, oh my God, like, this whole machine exists. and we take part in it, and we enjoy it to our various degrees, and we're contributing to it right now. So of course, I recognize all of that. But I think what people miss, part of what they're missing about the Globes is that idea of like, it was just the weird other thing, and that was it. It was like you would kind of see, maybe you could like pick up a newspaper and read that the like British people gave out some awards, and there were some awards maybe given by some of the guilds that existed, but like you weren't like, it wasn't like breathlessly reported. People weren't like right on top of it, and it didn't at least feel like, I'm sure there was a stretch of time where all of that was heavy campaigning around there, but it wasn't something that like we could tap into. Because of podcasting and websites and the media, internet, and in general. So yeah, I think people are longing for a time before they knew about message boards and before they knew about podcasts, and they could just sort of like show up and be like, oh yeah, that Swedish guy, he won an award. That's crazy. Like he was up against Sean Penn. Like that would feel weird, but because there's been all this stuff happening already, you would kind of be like, yeah, Stellan Skarsgård. We've known for like a year and a half that he's a strong candidate to get supporting actor. We know that. I mean, again, there's like regular people who might only still watch the Golden Globes and the Oscars, and they probably had a delightful time and were surprised. Like, oh yeah, Rose Byrne from Neighbors. She won an award for a movie I never heard of with Conan O'Brien. That must be hilarious. They don't know. So, I think part of it is we can be too clued in, and maybe we are too clued in, and the people who are saying this are too clued in. I would like it to be wild and wacky and not try to predict the Oscars and try to go in a different direction. The problem is I don't want it to come back to, oh, it's just people kind of paying off these weird little judges. And also they're very handsy with the performers to get whatever they want. They demand FaceTime and like they're gross. So it's tough. Like, yeah, I would, that's kind of what we have with the Independent Spirit Awards, where it's like, at least in theory, it's supposed to be that like, you can't have been above a certain budget. You're not going to have like a studio attached to it. So there won't be as much, there's movies that won't get as much campaigning. I guess that's the closest we could have to the Globes now. That old school feel about just like, what are these movies? Like, we're going to learn about it, I guess. I don't know. Not exactly the same, but I guess there's at least something a little different. That was a ramble. I'm sorry.
I would like last weekend, listeners of the show, and I think the majority of the co-hosts on the show were trying to get me like invested in the Critics' Choice Awards, and I was like, nope, not there yet. And I actually think it's exactly what PT just said. It's like, well, what were the Critics' Choice doing that was so different than the Globes, which is so different than the BAFTAs, which is so different than the Oscars? And I do think if every streaming service is going to buy their own award show, I think you have to start picking different lanes. What is like striking to me is, and I understand it's not the Hollywood Foreign Press anymore, but like this should be like more global, right? Like Golden Globes should be like, let's actually really give full weight and consideration to everywhere around the world and make our voters look at screeners from everywhere. I think that would be the lane I would pick for the Golden Globes, but guess what? That lane is terrible for ratings, right? Like it's not going to, you need these celebrities. So maybe you go more popular. Like I do fear that we're like not far away from like the Middle America Awards for the real movies that reflect the good people in this country. Like
live from
I
Branson.
feel like it's coming.
Branson's craziest night.
Like I think it's coming as these get more specialized and more highbrow, and like that sucks, right? Like I'm not rooting for that, but it just feels like it's going to happen. And I'm reporting not live, but I go to a multiplex that now has like 2 or 3 screens that are devoted to like the Angel releases, because that's a growing segment of this industry that people are really finally like tuning into, because they think all of Hollywood is bad and has too many boobies in it. So they're going to show just like happy times with no curse words. So I don't know, but I do think it's a problem. I don't disagree with anything PT just said. And yet like the solution of like, look, it was actually like super awesome that Noah Wyle won an award and hugged George Clooney on the way to the stage. And like, that kind of TV is just good TV. And I followed Kumail Nanjiani and his wife Emily V. Gordon, and they were posting today about like the screenshot of the two heated rivalry guys, and they are visible in between the heated rivalry guys in the deep background, and they were like just ecstatic to be. It's like that's like the kind of stuff you tune in for. And I didn't catch it, but I think the Hamnet boys went in and met Leonardo DiCaprio like adorably on one of the bumpers of that. Like that's if it's gonna just be glitzy and we love celebrities, I'm fine with that as like a way to be a little different and special. But March 15th is a long time away, right? It's still over 2 months away. I don't know what we're gonna be doing with ourselves other than maybe seeing movies, because that's the point of this, and that's really good.
All right. I do want to do a general temperature check of the Oscar race to close this out. So now that we have these winners, we had Critics' Choice. There's been a lot of data in the past week or two. We've got the PGA nominees, we've got SAG nominees, the Actor Award nominees. Sorry, Greg. And BAFTA long list, Oscar short list. Like, there's so much information available now in terms of like what all the aspects of the industry and the critics and stuff are doing. Absorbing all of that, what do you think are like kind of the big narratives or the big takeaways as we go inch closer to the Oscars? And I do say inch because, as Greg pointed out, it's in March.
Jen, could you take the first point on that question that you just now I'm making you ask yourself? Because we keep talking over you and pushing you aside. So give one take first.
Well, I mean, I think what the Golden Globes really solidified, to the surprise of basically no one, is that One Battle After Another has really cemented itself as the one and only frontrunner, right? I think I'm still not convinced of how many acting wins it can get. Acting nominations, yes. At the Oscars, I think we'll get plenty. But I do think that PTA and Best Pick for Director and the film for Best Picture are pretty much sewn up. I don't know what would happen between now and then to really like undermine that. And it does seem like
Maya Rudolph.
Oh, yes, yeah. Barring some Carlos Sofia Gascon level scandal, I don't think anything's going to interfere with One Battle After Another at this point. So I think that's definitely become clear. I think it will continue to. I think we're just going to continue to get confirmation that that's what's winning Best Picture. So unless there's some crazy, I was trying to think earlier today of like, okay, what are the weird scenarios? Like, what could possibly happen at these other awards that would like cause people to suddenly start to doubt what's going to happen? The only thing would be if Sinners suddenly started like winning a lot. Like if for whatever reason Ryan Coogler won DGA, if Sinners got SAG Ensemble, which is actually very possible, still. And you know what I mean? Like there's always that late breaking kind of like, what if it's this? And then it ends up not being that. Like it's what it was all along. That's sort of what happened with Oppenheimer, I feel like, right? People were like, oh, maybe it's this. No, it's just been Oppenheimer the whole time. So yeah, go ahead. No, I'm done.
Oh, the Oppenheimer One Battle After Another parallel feels very kind of accurate. Like where it's like, this is this guy, film bros love him. He's had this like fan base for a long time, gotten nominations through the years, but has never broken through. Like, you know what? Like we all like this one. So like now's the time we're going to give it to him. This is the movie of the moment. And so we're just going to, pile it on. And the ebb and flow has seemed to have been like, oh, is this going to get like an Anora amount of awards or an Oppenheimer amount of awards? Is this going to get like 4 or 5, or is it going to get like 8 or 9? And, like that does seem like that's kind of the question. And the fact it won, it did win an acting award, even though again, like Teyana Taylor was sort of felt like the default. Like, yeah, we'll give Teyana Taylor one. Maybe there'll be a supporting actor, one of the two guys, or maybe it'll be Leo, or maybe even Chase Infinity. Like, who knows? But like, it's interesting that we have Frankenstein, we have Sinners, down in the technicals where it felt like, and Hamnet. I think Hamnet will get costume, production design. I think that, like, I don't know exactly what the once those guilds start tuning in, but it'll be interesting to see if One Battle could start to pick up those technical things, because I do think it feels like, at least, like, there could have easily been Johnny Greenwood. Like, what are we doing? Like, he's been nominated a bunch. Like, he does all these great scores. Isn't it his time? It's the same way it's PTA's time. But instead, it's like, what if we made Ludwig Göransson like one of the 3 or 4 biggest Oscar winners in music for like one stretch of time, and potentially carrying forward because he's got the Odyssey next year. So there's that's interesting. So I think you're right. I think it does feel like it's locked in. I honestly feel like the only thing that can upend it, barring some group with cameras giving Sean Penn supporting actor and him saying something crazy, which I think would just hurt him and not the whole movie. I think it would just be boredom. That, like, yeah, like as Greg said, like, we're 2 months out. This movie's been a juggernaut. People are gonna be spending 2 months in this awards industrial complex, just kind of being like, I guess I don't know, let's pretend there's a race, and then be like, what if it's Hamnet? Like, what if it's Sinners? What if it's Frankenstein? What if it's one of these foreign movies? What if the Secret Agent becomes so big? Like, that's the next narrative, I bet, is that what if Secret Agent has got this momentum? It's actually going to take Best Picture, and PTA is going to get director, but one of the international movies will take. And I don't think that'll happen. But it's the problem of building all of besides the problems Greg was talking about potentially, like, quickly looking at and dismissing movies without really taking it in or letting people sit with it. But another problem with having all of this industry around talking about these awards is when the awards are pretty settled pretty early. Not a lot of content, not a lot of stuff to do, so they're going to try to figure something else out. So, but that said, there's really no reason to think One Battle After Another isn't, like, still in pole position, isn't still gonna gladly triumph, and then we're going to be mostly arguing about Rose Byrne versus Jessie Buckley, and Amy Madigan versus Teyana Taylor, like some of these smaller things, and it's like, oh, production design, is that Frankenstein or is that Sinners? Like, what are we gonna do with that? And okay, like, that's fine. To Greg's point, I think we gotta lean into some Dumb Peoria movies here. Maybe do some flashbacks. Maybe do some movie guests. Like, we're gonna have some time to talk about other things, because I don't know how many more Oscar preview episodes we're gonna need after this one, because this is kind of like, yeah, everything seems pretty settled.
I just will emphasize this is just last year all over again. That's all I see this year, which is that, like, last year we were all sure it was Anora all the way through, and then it was like, oh, wait. I mean, it was what Jen just said. It's like, but wait, what if? And then, like, 3 awards in on Oscar night, everybody's like, well, we knew it was Anora the whole time. Aren't we so smart? We clap ourselves off to the back. I have no doubt that on March 15th, it's going to be Teyana Taylor and then Benicio. And everybody will be like, well, of course, we knew it the whole time. We were just kidding about those other articles and delete, right? And I just... it feels to me like this is just going to completely dominate. And I like this movie a lot. Like I said, I have trouble whenever the front runner kind of comes into picture. But I'm basically abandoning hope of a spread the wealth year. I think this is just going to be a run the table year. And the fact, I mean, you could make arguments with this, but it kind of feels like you go everywhere, everything everywhere, Oppenheimer, Anora, One Battle After Another. And I think this is just the new normal. And if we're not going to be spreading the wealth most years, like, how do we feel about that? And is this going to, be good or bad for the industry? And decide for yourselves whether industry is the movie industry or the awards industry, the publicity industry. But, anything else? I mean, I will say that if that Hamnet moment had been in the first hour, I think it could have disrupted the narrative. But the fact that it was so late, I think it matters that it was Spielberg, right? If people were like, whoa, wait, a really famous guy just got up and started talking and I love him. I think if that had happened early on and people were like, well, maybe I should check out this Hamnet. I didn't realize Spielberg was involved. And then the nice speech from Chloe Zhao, people would be like, maybe I should give Eternals another chance and check that out. No, but I think it could have disrupted it, but I think Hamnet is just too small at the end of the day. One Battle was big for PTA, small in general, but now that it's on HBO, I'm sure they won't say how many numbers. It was back at the top of iTunes today when I was on there, and it was here. So it's like, I think it's just going to march. So, so this is Long Take Reviews signing off for Oscar season. We'll see you on March 16th for our post show.
So wait, I have one to close this out. I'm going to read you the PGA nominees. And then you tell me which ones overlap with Best Picture. Like which one, or probably more accurately, which ones do you take out? And what do you swap them with to make the Best Picture 10 at this point? So, and for those of you who are listening who don't know, PGA is the Producers Guild. So these are all they tend to lean more populist, right? Because producers are like, these movies made a lot of money. But in recent past, actually, it's been more of a mix of artsier movies. So anyway.
And isn't this the most predictive of the nomination for Best Picture?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It had the percentage of crossover is crazy. It's like in the 70s or 80%. Like,
we're just back in the machine that Greg was just complaining about. So sorry, Greg. But I think that this is useful.
I tried to sign off till March. It was rejected. It's fine. No, you're good.
Yeah. I think you fail to understand why this podcast exists, Greg. So I have a place to talk about this stuff. Okay, so we have Begonia, which we haven't talked about at all this whole episode, but it's still kind of holding steady.
Begonia took the spot that I was hoping would go to Avatar: Fire and Ash in the Sound Guild Awards for like what seems to be the most in line with the best sound, because I'm trying to get any movie fantasy league points I can get. So I was like, oh, maybe Avatar will get sound. Begonia for sound is an inspired choice. Anyway, yeah, Begonia's
not a great night for Begonia though. Right?
No,
it's because you said we haven't said its name. Like it lost everything.
I think Begonia and Marty Supreme, other than Chalamet, like I'm actually not sure how many nominations those two movies get at the Oscars. Anyway, I'm gonna read all of them.
Sorry, Jen. I'm sorry to interrupt one more time because I know you really want to read this list. But I will say, Greg, like it's interesting. The idea of spreading the wealth is like if you go back like before the pandemic, it was like, and even the pandemic Oscars, it was like there was like one movie would get like 4 wins. There'd be like 2 with 3 and like 3 or 4 with 2. Like that felt like it was spreading the wealth. And I think now it's like there's the one big movie and then there's like 7 movies that get 1 award each. It's like the wealth gets spread really thin. It's America, man. Like, one group gets everything and then like a little bit of crumbs get spread around. So it's interesting, but like, yeah, maybe even when we come to nominations, this is why I'm saying that, is maybe when it comes to nominations, it's like maybe Begonia is just Emma being nominated and she'll be happy to be there. Maybe Marty is just going to be a win competitive Timothy Chalamet, and like the other stuff is going to be like they're in 5th place if they show up at all. Who knows? Sorry, Jen. I won't do it again. I promise.
So I'm going to read the whole list. Do not interrupt me, and then we can discuss. Okay. So we've got Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, Sentimental Value, Sinners, Train Dreams, and Weapons. So how much of that is repeating at the Oscars for Best Picture?
I'm going to jump in first and say you take out F1 and put in Secret Agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say I hate it. I'm saying what I think will happen, not what I want to happen. I think you take out Weapons. I don't think it has the juice to get there. And then that would give room for another international feature, maybe Surratt. I'm hung up on how many long lists Surratt ended up on. It's also, for me, it's the big question mark because they haven't let anybody see it yet. So, normies.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And I think it was just an accident for Weapons, but it's like that would be the 10th. Mm-hmm. Like that juggling 10th spot. But I think that's totally right. I like the idea of F1 getting in as like another blockbuster. Interesting. I do think if we get, and again, I have a vested interest. I do think if they're like, no, we need a real blockbuster, like Sinners isn't good enough. I think they would just do Avatar because they're like, this made so much money. Like this has made over $1 billion. Like put it in. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think instead it will be smaller movies and international movies, Secret Agent for sure, and then probably Accident. But the evidence of Surat being on all those shortlists are, it's undeniable. So there's definitely like some energy there. Like however these people are seeing that movie, like they're into it, or there was speculation that it was going to be good. I don't know, but yeah, I think it will. It would be one of those two. I think that's right. I would love it if Weapons got in there. Yeah, I don't know if I want to sacrifice those international movies, but like, spoilers for the LTR. Weapons is one of my top 10 movies of the year, so I'm excited. I would put it in there, but I don't.
I think that would be too many Warner Brothers movies,
and too many
Warner
genre
Brothers
movies.
That would be kind of crazy, and 3 genre. Yeah, so Train Dreams is the tricky one for me because like I'm always trying to think about what is the awards package for a Best Picture nominee. Like how many nominations and in what categories are getting it into Best Picture. And Train Dreams, I feel like Joel Edgerton is just on the outside looking in at this point. And cinematography seems good, but like that's it. I think maybe adapted screenplay,
cinematography, song, adapted screenplay.
Oh, song! I forgot about song. I don't know. Nobody talks about the song from that movie though,
because it's like it's not going to win. It's just it's a credit song by a hip, an old hip guy, like a hip guy for people who are 60. Where it's just like, oh yeah, that's cool, but like, it's like, who cares? And again, like I say that, even though that's the song that gets bumped out if Diane Warren's. So, who knows?
And we know how that works.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, I'm really glad we could break this down so quickly after the awards have been given. Where can folks find you? What do you want to plug? Close us out.
People can find me on Letterboxd, trying to juice those stats and get going for a new year. And that is at Ion Cannon, EYEONCANON. I also have made a few appearances lately around the Star Wars internet. In so prominently, I actually, on my work email account, just got a spam promoter offering to promote me to appear on other podcasts, which cracked me up. Did you get one of those, Jen? Because it was a podcast we both appear on. Check your spam folder.
Okay.
Check your spam folder. They were like, we can get you onto 3 or 4 podcasts a month. And I was like, bitch, please. That'd be a light month. So yeah, find me around. Most recently, I was over on Rebel Base Card. We were previewing the year ahead and talking a lot about Stranger Things, which is a stranger thing for me to be talking about. And then I was also on Force Ghost Conversations recently, wrapping up some old Star Wars business and looking ahead to some new Star Wars business. And Wheel of Time, Through the Glass Columns, we just actually are about to record the end of book 7, which puts us halfway, baby, through the Wheel of Time saga. So if you are looking for a new reading project in the new year, go on over there and join up. All the old episodes are available. PT, over to you.
So because it's the Wheel of Time, right? Like you have to go start back at the first book once you finish the 14th one, right? And that's just, it just keeps turning. You can find me also over on Letterboxd, putting up some numbers, but nothing like Greg's. I mean, come on. I can't compete. You can find me over on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You can find the show there at LTR Pod. You can also look for us on social media, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com. And you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Hit follow, hit add, hit plus, hit save, hit heart, whatever the mechanism is where you are listening. Do that, and you'll get new episodes, including to break through this bluster of the Oscar industrial complex. You will have a couple of episodes coming up soon about our own awards for our own favorite movies. So some of these ignored movies will get some shine, and we'll get a chance to shine spotlights on things, which will be great. So that's coming soon. So stick around. Greg will be much happier because it'll be the movies he actually likes until we start giving awards to one battle after another, like everyone else. Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sobchakchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI. or on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jinn. And I will to plug our past episodes because we worked really hard to try to get as many Best Picture contenders reviewed as possible. We're not quite there yet, but a lot of movies that we reviewed earlier are coming out now or are streaming now, and so No Other Choice. I've actually gotten a couple of comments about that people are just seeing it and they're going back and listening to the episode we recorded a while ago. So check out our feed because movies that we're talking about right now that you haven't seen yet, we probably reviewed them. Let's give a standing ovation to Greg just for being Greg, like he's Julia Roberts.
Greg. he could harangue
thank God and the trans community.
But PT already took that joke.
Oh, I forgot.
It was a good bookend.
Yeah, that's true.
Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive occasional written reviews of new Star Wars and Marvel